Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. On this episode, we have Joanne Kinyon from Bishop O'Dade High School out in California. We reached out to her as we were looking at the collaborative medical care and performance model she was talking about on Twitter. And so we got to sit down and have a conversation about that. It is a little unique. It seems like there's some extra resources that happen to be available to her, which is fantastic. But a lot of the things that they've implemented, other versions of it can be implemented almost anywhere. Even just looking at the setting that I'm currently in at a Division III school and what can be done. And it's really just about getting it going and then being organized when the process starts. So there's a lot of really good information in here that you might be able to take away some things that apply to your specific setting and where you're working. So we highly recommend you listening to check that out. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Please give them a shout out or check them out. They're always willing to help and listen, and we know that firsthand going down and being pseudo experts, as we like to say, about the different things that we're wanting to see come out for athletic trainers. With all of that, please enjoy this episode. All right. Well, welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. We are on with Joanne, and I screwed up and didn't ask Kinyon.
Yes.
Got it. On my last name. We only knew her through at BOD_power on Twitter as we reached out as we were seeing some things that you were posting and wanted to have this conversation, focusing around kind of the collaborative medical care model and specifically in the high school setting. With that, before we get into too many questions, because I'll just bypass this whole thing, would you care to give a little bit more background and kind of set the stage as we get into asking some of these questions?
Yeah. Nice to see everyone. Glad we could get together finally and do this. It took us a while to set it up, but like I said, I'm Joanne Kinyon. I work for Bishop O'Dade High School in Oakland, California, and my background is I've been there for about 10 years, but prior to that, I worked for USA Taekwondo. I worked for a few universities and club programs throughout universities. And I would say kind of what really kicked off that collaborative care was I did an internship in college that was a training center for pros. And we were probably one of the first to start that collaborative medical care. And so that's really where that foundation came from for me.
Awesome. I know the biggest one then that was intriguing to me on this is the medical model, collaborative medical care, interprofessional collaboration is at the forefront of just the profession in general. We're currently at a D3 setting, and I think we're in one of I would say, a better spot than just a lot in places in terms of resources and people that people don't always have access to. And knowing the high school model where that is even less common, how have you gotten, this collaboration started? And I know one of the questions specifically we had is just outside of finding funding, which is always a limiting barrier, what is some of the biggest barriers that you've run into?
Well, I think it really depends on your coaching staff and your administration that you have. And I've been really fortunate enough to have an administration that's always been really on board with progressing things. And when I've made the case for them, they've kind of let me run with it. And so I think I'm really fortunate in that way because that's not always the case. And being at a private school is definitely an advantage in that. Public schools have a lot more red tape, I think, than private schools do. So I think that's definitely an advantage that we have. And a lot of the things that we've incorporated and talked about incorporating are things that don't really cost money. So that's always a appealing piece to high schools and, well, to really anyone in general. So I think there's some things that were just a lot of bang for our buck that we have done and started doing that don't cost any money, cost time, which eventually does cost money because you need staff for, but at least in the beginning, it's pretty easy to ramp up. So
What would be some examples, if you don't mind sharing some of the secrets?
some of the secrets. So, so our coaching staff does a really good job. We all have our strength coach and I. We've developed a um, warm up that all the teams do, and we kind of tweak it per team a little bit, but for the most part, it's pretty consistent throughout. And it's designed. Whoop, did I lose you? Oh,
Oh,
okay.
still there.
Um, it's designed to prevent injury, and we incorporate a lot of things into it. So, for example, our track team had some hamstring issues last year, and we looked at the issues. We looked at what we thought was going on, what had made it better, and we developed a warm up around what they around their problem, right? So. Um, One of the other things that we've done that we're actually just started doing is we incorporated a mental health quiz into their pre-participation, and so we haven't quite sussed out how it's gonna be applied. We do have some mental health people on campus, and we've talked to them about you know how we're going to use it with them and collaborate with them a lot. So but that's one of those things that we started doing that is easy to incorporate, is free to incorporate, and you know the challenge is obviously utilizing that information for making change, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, no, that mental health piece has been a big one. It's just figuring out, A, you want to do something, but if once you had the information, then what are you going to do with it on the back
yeah,
end?
yeah.
Which is
So
always
we
the hardest part because if it's hard to have enough people to deal with that, whether it's seemingly more prevalent or we're just recognizing it more, whatever it may be, just to get people to where they need to be is not proving to be a simple task.
Yeah, no, for sure not. For sure not. I mean, like I said, we're lucky enough to have a pretty robust mental health department at the school that we work really collaboratively with. But yeah, even so, I think it starts to snowball on you, and we're going to very quickly realize that we need a lot more help to do what we actually need to do. So yeah.
In terms of the
Um,
oh, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I would say those are the other thing, other kind of thing that we've done that is pretty inexpensive as far as incorporating, as we have collaborated with the cafeteria at the school to help them kind of develop more uh, better options for our student athletes. Now, are the student athletes taking advantage of it? It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but at least the conversation has taken place, and we've made some progress with that. So I'd say those are our top ones that we are easy and cheap.
Right. Yeah, you can. What's the saying that everybody is? You can always lead them to water, but you can't force them to drink, kind of a thing. No matter
For sure.
how
Uh,
much you put it out there.
yeah, and I cringe when my kids come in with the ice cream sandwich and French fries for lunch, and I'm like, "What was the option? The healthy option today?" Oh gosh, okay.
Yeah, we always go back
So
and forth, and just getting in calories because some of them need just an unbelievable amount, which can be hard to do. But at the same time, again, timing is everything, and like you said, fueling with ice cream sandwiches and French fries before a practice, maybe not your best option.
hurts me. It hurts me.
I can understand that.
We've also done some kind of, I don't know if you want to call them sponsorships, but we have the luxury of having Cliff Bar located right here, and we have several coaches and parents and things that work for them. So we've been able to get quite a bit of free product from them, and then Gatorade is also a really good resource for us too, just of getting product from them for protein bars and shakes and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
um, yeah, obviously not available to everyone, I think, but local vendors are always a good way to kind of get that nutritional aspect filled.
Yeah, get your some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of in this model, there's been some more change to it, and again, we referenced the medical model. Kind of what is your guys' setup there? But then also, like, where do you see the athletic trainer fitting into this? Is it something where they potentially are like overseeing it, and then it kind of branches out, so there's kind of that funnel back to kind of coordinate everything, or is it underneath? Everybody's kind of got their own little entity, and it's just by natural work that people come together, or
I
how
think,
what do you see, or what do you think is the best model?
yeah, I think athletic trainers are a really natural model to be the kind of manager of all of the different aspects of performance. And I mean, athletic training has a very wide breadth of knowledge, right? So I think it's very natural to have them as, like, as you say, the kind of the funnel,
Hmm.
and kind of disseminate. We're the first ones to see so many of these things, so many injuries, so many issues that come up, and so us being able to disseminate into the right um, area, I think, is something that we can be very good at, and something that, I think that's where I see us being the most valuable, is knowing a lot about all of these areas, and then and then funneling it down. So uh, yeah.
So this one's kind of a two-parter, and I'll ask the first one, and the second one's kind of a own personal question, just kind of with the world that we're living in, and um, the kind of the high profile, for lack of a better term, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you get to work with. But first, like, what have you found to be useful, like tactics and strategies to show the importance of this? Like, we can put, like we just kind of said, like, you can put all the information in front of people, and but convincing them to actually do it and buy into it, whether that's coaches or athletes, or in probably your setting to a degree, parents, obviously, where that's a little different in the collegiate setting where that influence isn't as great. Um, what have you found to be useful to gather that support and to get that buy-in?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be coaches that don't want to hear what you have to say, and well, there we
You're
go.
back.
Okay. I don't know what's happening there. Yeah, so there's always going to be coaches that don't want to hear what you have to say. There's always going to be parents. There's always going to be kids that don't want to hear it. So what I always really try to do is focus on the ones that do want to hear it, and focus on the things that you can control, because you're only going to get frustrated with the kids and the parents and the coaches that don't listen, right? So what I always try to do is, if there's a coach that's really on board with us and really we have a great relationship, and they want to try some of this stuff, that's who I go for first. I mean, that we're going to have a great relationship, and what's going to result from that is, or we're going to get results from it. Same with the kids, same with the parents. So offering opportunities to these parents and these kids for educational meetings and roundtables, and all of those things are, you can't make them go. Well, you can, I guess, but it's not an effective way to do it. So getting those few people in that are on board and building it from there, I think, is the way that I tend to do it. And I think is the way that makes you not go crazy. So we have a couple coaches that are, you have to pick what coaches, uh, what they find to be most important.
Yep.
So, for example, we have our track coach. He's really into our nutrition piece of it. So we have met with his track team multiple times about nutrition, good options, good choices, even like proper weight with some of the girls, which is a you know questionable thing to do with high school students, but it's actually worked out pretty well. So um, and then, for example, our men's basketball program, they're really into the performance training piece and the testing and having data to see if their vertical jumps getting better and see what their 3/4 length sprint is looking like and all these things. So um, you you very rarely have a team that's into all of it. I guess is the thing. So being able to choose which pieces they're going to be most into, and then try to incorporate in a few of the other pieces that you think they need the most work on. So like for me, our men's basketball program, like I said, they're really into performance, they're really into testing and all those things. But they show up in the weight room with french fries, you know so we try to incorporate some of that nutrition stuff, because that's something that I think would really help them the most. Some of them are not putting weight on like they want. Some of them are not reaching the goals they think they can reach, and I think a lot of that is due to their nutrition, right? So so incorporating some of those things that they maybe like don't think is very important, but getting them on board with the things that they really like and are important. So
Have you seen potentially like other teams pick up on stuff kind of by that attrition piece? Like you get it, nutrition works with track, and all of a sudden people are either, developing the muscle they were looking for or getting into the shape they're chasing after. And then all of a sudden the next team's like, well, why don't you, has that been something you've seen happen?
100% that happens all the time, actually. So we had we were having a cramping issue with our football team a few years ago now, but what we realized is that the kids were not eating anything from lunch until their 7 p.m. Friday night game, and we're like, oh, that's probably nutrition that we're having, why we're having so many issues. So we started doing pregame meal for them, and it almost instantly stopped,
Okay.
almost all of it, right? And so um, what ended up happening is, of course, at first there's this jealousy of the team being so important, and oh my gosh, why don't we get it? And it's like, no, no, you can get it, but like you just have to speak to us about it, right? And so a bunch of the other teams were like, we want pregame meal, so we started setting it up, and now it's something that's standard for almost all our teams.
Fair
You
enough.
know, and that's something that we usually, there's exceptions. Some of the teams don't like to do it, but usually that's something we work with the cafeteria for, and they do it for us. So yeah. And then there's been similar things with the weight room. For example, we had our women's lacrosse program was having a ton of injuries, and they'd never been in the weight room ever. And so we started, putting them in the weight room, and that actually just happened this year. So I'll get back to you on if it
Yeah,
actually
right.
works. But I have faith.
It's at least a step in the seemingly right direction.
Yeah, exactly. So but we were having a lot of strength issues with them. They were just not able to like sustain the forces that they were putting on their bodies. So we think it's going to work.
I think I like the plan. I got to imagine it will.
Yeah, that's right. I have faith that's going to work. So
So my long-awaited second part of that question was, you know, in a world of more instant gratification, like I need to hear what I need to hear, I need to get it done, um, and not necessarily being in a place like a Division 1 university or something like that that's got their own secondary insurance where things may be a little bit more procedure related. We still obviously it's whatever our at the D3 level, whatever our athlete's insurance is, we kind of have to work through that. How do you handle in this collaborativeness and this model and just on your own, if you didn't get the answer that they wanted to hear,
Right.
how does that work out? Because I have to imagine, again, especially at the level that you have people participating at, that comes up.
Yeah, that's probably one of my least
Google
favorite
is
things.
dangerous.
What's that?
And Google is dangerous.
Yes, exactly. Everyone has cancer or something, right?
Yep.
Yes. So that's, I think, one of the most challenging things at a high school period is the fact that you don't have control of all of the the healthcare professionals in their circle, right? um, and so I think it, I think one thing, it takes time to develop the kind of network of the doctors. So, I mean, I've been there a while now. I recognize a lot of the doctors that come through. Um, I have reached out to them. I currently am in we call it a book club, but it's like a journal. We have a couple journal articles that we evaluate every month or so. But it's all doctors that are in the group, and so building, and that's something I didn't set it up, but I've actually like thought of setting it up, and then I found out about this group. So um I think having that, just constant networking with all the doctors and all of the healthcare professionals. And I mean, me and my assistant are obsessive about calling and talking to them and leaving messages and emailing and all these things, because some of them don't want to talk to you, right? And they don't want to share what their thing is. They don't understand what athletic trainers do and are. And so we do a lot of educating of the healthcare professionals in this area, just because um, I think that's how we end up with a better, more collaborative program for our athletes. And that's ultimately the goal, is having them have the best experience and best goals, achieving their goals.
Hmm.
So I think for me, it comes down to networking, not being afraid of calling and leaving a message and having a conversation with them. Most of them are more than willing to have the conversation once they know who you are and what you are and all of that. So there is exceptions, of course. So yeah, so having doctors not in the sports medicine mindset is definitely frustrating. And for us, it's funny. Sometimes we'll have parents that are not in the sports medicine mindset either, so they don't want their child returning um, as quickly as they can either. So you kind of have to know who you're working with. As far as that goes too. I don't know. I think that's one of my least favorite things about high school, is the, like, for better terms, like lack of control of their yeah.
Yeah, we've run into it, just all over the place, but different professions that, oh, well, you need to have this, and this is the only way to get it done, or, oh, the latest. I mean, we had something come up with an injury, and PRP gets brought into the mix, and it's just like, well, that doesn't really apply here, and like if you want, but that's up to you.
Sure.
Or I'm not like chiropractors, this is not to offend them, but some of the ones that it's we're gonna fix anything and everything just by adjusting you, and just, well, hold on, let's just make sure that we're seeing the whole picture here. And
Yeah.
especially in a much bigger city than where we are, I can imagine that can get real tough real quick.
Yeah, there's certain teams that snowballs out of control. In yeah, so I guess it used to bother me a lot more, and then I realized that that wasn't making it better, and that, one, is it hurting them to go see them?
Right.
Maybe not, right? Is it making them feel like they're taking control of their injury? Maybe. So, like, I guess that's my thing. And then, like, okay, if you want to go see this person, I don't necessarily think it's necessary because we could do everything they're doing. But
Mhm.
if it makes you feel better, go ahead and bring me a doctor's note.
Yeah,
um,
make them work for it.
so
We might have to implement some of that.
Yeah.
Bring
yeah, yeah.
no,
Well, we're very big on the doctor's note. So
yeah, before you get treated
yeah,
back here, we need a note.
yep.
I like that.
No, that's
No,
exactly what we do.
I think
Actually,
that
yeah.
puts a little onus on if you're gonna go out and do it. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's twofold. One, I want to make sure that what we're doing is complementing what they're doing.
Yep.
So, if they're doing Graston and, exercise rehab and whatever, we don't necessarily need to do that if you're already getting that somewhere else. So let's do something else,
Yeah.
And also I want to know who they're seeing so I can talk to them. So, maybe a little bit sneaky on like building my network that way, but
Wrong with that.
but the more people that I know do it, the easier my job is. We developed a pretty robust concussion protocol program, and that involves the counseling program and the mental health people and everything at the school. And for a few years, I had so much pushback from the healthcare professionals we were sending them to, and they didn't want to fill out our documentation. They didn't want to give us, anything
Mm,
back, right? And at this point, all the doctors know who we are, and they go, "Oh yeah, O'Dowd's concussion program. We know that. Okay, where's the note?" And so then
yep.
they fill out all their stuff. We have doctors call us and say, "Hey, we saw your guy. Like, this is the deal." And so it's actually persistence pays off as well.
Yeah, I think especially when you had mentioned like how well thought out it is that you're demonstrating your proficiency. It's not like you just slap something together and as soon
Right.
as they're symptom free, they'll as long as they can take a shot to the head, life's good, and we're going to return them. Yeah, I'm assuming it's much
Yeah.
more complex than that, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
it's
demonstrating that proficiency just helps build that credibility where then it's they're not shy to be a
yeah.
part of it because it's something that they can feel comfortable with putting their name behind.
Right. Right. Yeah. We actually just had a chiropractor that's been seeing one of my athletes recently, and they said, "Oh, I didn't even know that athletic trainers did all the stuff that you guys are doing."
Oh Lord.
I was like, "Oh, okay, well, that hurts me, but thank you for the compliments."
Yeah. Question
You
mark.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but right there is a relationship and an educational piece that like didn't that obviously had never happened for them before.
Right.
So,
Yep.
um, you know, progress, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Painful, but it is progress.
Yeah, yeah. It hurts me that like we've been around for so long and that's still coming up, but that's okay. So, now they won't do that again. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
I think that was kind of all the general questions that we had around the episode. You got anything else?
I don't have anything else for you.
So, unless there's anything you would like to cover, we can jump into kind of those last 5 questions.
Let's do it.
So we changed the order slightly by putting the first one last. I got to just change that on the sheet, but
Okay.
we'll go with the first one of where do you see athletic training going in the next 5 to 10 years? And if you could kind of set the example, and that could be overall, or if you wanted to talk specific to the high school, that whatever you prefer, we'd love to hear.
Okay. I think athletic training is really at a juncture right now. And for me, I would really like athletic training to kind of double down on the athletics world and really kind of take advantage of, that high performance model that we've been talking a little bit
Mhm.
about today, and really build that place and for them to be leaders and directors of like performance programs. Um, I know, the NATA and everyone are, really trying to branch out into the industrial areas and some of those things. But for me, not that they're not, that athletic trainers are not valuable there, but for me, I just think that are, kind of sticking close to our roots and sticking close to what we originally started out as and what our purpose originally was, is more of what I would like to see. Moving it in, more into, more the medical field overseeing the athletic trainers as opposed to the athletics
Yep.
department overseeing, I think is a good thing. As far as being on a medical model, but I think coming from a high performance side, it could hurt us a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind
Just
of
because, yeah. So for me, I think that kind of hybrid sports medicine performance piece that I think we kind of are. We're kind of that bridging the gap person. I would like us to stay close to those roots, honestly. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think that it's there's a lot of opportunity for growth there, and a lot of opportunity to build some really interesting programs and collaborations. So uh, yeah, for me, that's where I'd like to see it, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen.
It will be interesting.
Yeah.
What advice would you give yourself if you could go back and give advice to your young athletic training self?
Yeah. So um, when I was an athletic training student, I worked every single event that I could get my hands on as an athletic trainer. I worked rodeo and frisbee and Quidditch and like all sorts of things. And I think that was a really smart thing to do. I think I learned a lot of things, a lot of working with people, and also just kind of different kinds of athletes and things like that. But for me, I think one thing that I would have done differently is I would have branched out in my master's program, and I would have done more administrative or exercise phys or like something not focused on athletic training.
Right.
I think I just wish I knew more about that stuff now. And so, so I think that would be my advice to my younger self is to, get your master's in sports administration, Joanne, not athletic training, something along those lines.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So,
What has been one of the most influential resources that you have found in your career?
um, let's see.
I'm reading your answer and can agree with
I know. I'm like, where's my answer?
close to the bottom.
Oh yes, okay. That's who I was thinking of in my mind, but I didn't know if that's what I put. So, okay, yeah. So I think Sue Falsoni for me. Sue Falsoni, if you don't know who she is, she's a physical therapist, athletic trainer. She was the first female head athletic trainer in professional sports. But before that, I actually worked for her as an intern at Athletes Performance, and she definitely set my like how I evaluate people and just kind of my how I do a lot of things. She was very influential in that, and then just kind of seeing her progress in her career, like definitely made me very proud to be like have worked for her, right? And she's definitely like one of my little romance with with Sue Falsoni for sure. Um, I recently took her dry needling course. Well, a couple years ago now, but and I would definitely recommend any of her educational things that she does now to athletic trainers. I think they're really valuable. Her outlook on athletic training and collaboration and high performance is really interesting.
Okay.
So
No, Austin's
I'd say,
one of her books that I need to start reading.
Yeah.
So
which one? The Bridging the Gap?
Yep.
Yep. I have it sitting on my desk at work.
Yep, I'll have to get into that one.
Yeah, it's a great book.
It is, yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, she's a really. If you've ever heard her speak or anything, she has a lot of really valuable content.
Mhm.
If you could change or eliminate a thing, could be modality, common practice, mindset, whatever it is, in the field of athletic training, what would it be? Again, I've got the preview, but I love your answer. Now,
Yeah. So, um, I I definitely think our name is deceiving. Does not illustrate everything that we are able to do, everything that we are knowledgeable about. And I would really like to see something more of, I don't know, athletic therapist or um, any number of other things I would be willing, to negotiate on. But I think that's my number one thing that I wish they had changed. What is it, 5 or so years ago when they went through the process of looking if they were going to change it.
right,
I, I wish they had. So
makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I always have to caveat that I lead with sports medicine and then I say athletic trainer to just try and nix the like, oh, you teach people how to lift weights thing. Like I try and
Right.
get
What gym
ahead
do
of
you
that.
work at?
Yeah, I try and get ahead of that by throwing out the sports medicine first, and that
Yeah.
seems to help. Um, right,
Yes, I do the same.
yeah,
I do the same. We're looking at building a new facility, and I've been pretty adamant about naming it the sports medicine facility and not the athletic training room. So, yeah. And I think there's some different things that different schools have done that I'm talking about with our school as well, of just kind of making that, clarifying that role a little bit more by changing the titles and things.
right.
So,
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah.
Last
So,
question
yeah.
I have for you is, what does being an athletic trainer slash what you would want to call it mean to you?
So I think athletic trainers are really important in, especially I'll talk about high school because I never thought I would work at a high school, but I really enjoy working at the high school. And you are the person that's in the trenches all the time. You're the person who sees them from start to finish, and you're the person that gives supports and whatever else that you need to do. And so, yeah, I think we have the opportunity to really build a lot of relationships in that area, and it's probably most important at the high school level. I see a lot of kids come back and they go, "Wow, like you guys are so great! Like we didn't even know what we had when we were here, you know." And so that's obviously why you do your job, but I also it we make an impact in those younger years and those kids. So
Awesome. I like how you sum that up. Just in closing, if people want to reach out to you or follow what you're doing, what would be their best options?
yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at BOD_power. You can also feel free to email me at kinyon@rocketmail.com. And yeah, hope to hear from everybody.
We appreciate you taking the time and kind of laying this out, and hopefully this will spark a lot of ideas for people to take away and figure out how they can implement more of this stuff where they're at.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thanks. I hope it helps everyone. And it's so nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, great to meet you
You as
too.
well.
Glad we got to finally get this
I know.
back.
Finally get it done.
Sounds good. Well, enjoy the
All
rest
right.
of your day and once you get to work.
Yes, you too. Well, you're halfway done now. So we'll talk to you later, you
Yep.
guys.